Welcome, y'all, to the ISI Iron Sharpens Iron podcast. Back with another edition of On My Way to Work, though I'm already here. And finally, hands free. Got the little doodad that goes on my windshield, and I can drive down the road and not have to be looking down, looking up. Anyhow, tonight I want to talk about a story. Well, I say a story. Yeah, a story in the Bible. In John 8. John 8 starts off with the adulterous woman. And there's a lot of stuff there. And that's actually what we're going over this week. We're going over John 8 in our ISI Bible study. Something just really stood out to me, and I've heard a ton of commentary on, this whole block of scripture. Heard so many people talk about it, and I wanted to, kind of give my take on it. You hear people, you'll hear people take verses, take scripture, and use it out of context. This bit of scripture right here may be one of the most widely used bits of scripture that everybody probably knows, and it gets abused as well. So the scripture goes, the Pharisees, they're still trying to they're still trying to hem Jesus up, right? So they bring a woman in. They're going to try to hem him up. They bring a woman in. They say, this woman right here was caught in some type of adulterous affair, if you will. And according to the law of Moses, we're supposed to stone her right here. What do you say to that? Jesus looks at him. He kneels down, takes his finger, starts drawing in the dirt. Then he stands back up, and he says, whichever one of y'all are without sin, cast the first stone. Paraphrasing, obviously. And then he bends back down and he starts writing in the dirt again. Now, nobody knows what he wrote in the dirt. Nobody. It's not in the Bible. So, we're left to assume what that was. And I've heard so many people, try to assume what it was. I've heard people say, oh, it was the 10 Commandments. It was this, it was that. I happen to think this, and I'm probably wrong as well. I happen to think that he was writing down these men's sins. Something along the lines of, hey, Joe, you did this. Hey, Bob, you've done that. Hey, Phil, what about this? Now, I happen to think that, and maybe I'm wrong with this too. I don't think I am, though. I happen to think that our God, the God that we serve, has a pretty big sense of humor. And if you don't, that's on you. But have you ever seen a naked mole rat or a duck-billed platypus? I happen to think he's got a pretty good sense of humor, and humor didn't come from us. We didn't create ourselves. So I think he has a sense of humor, and we have a sense of humor because of that, because we are created in his image. So the next thing that happens, and it doesn't say that he was being sarcastic. It doesn't say that he was being funny. But the next thing he does, he stands back up, and right before he stood back up, the men, the Pharisees, they start filing out one by one, the oldest first. And I think they use the oldest first because the oldest one was supposed to be the one who started chucking rocks. It was supposed to be like that. So the oldest one started filing out. And Jesus stands back up. He looks around and he says, "Woman, where are your accusers? Where are they at? Why isn't anybody chucking rocks? Nobody has thrown a stone yet. Where'd they go?" I think it's hilarious. And maybe I shouldn't, but I see comedy throughout the Bible. There's a lot of places in the Bible where there's pretty good comedic scripture in there, and that's one of them. But he says, she said, they're not here, they're gone, and he says, "Go and sin no more." People take that verse and utilize it out of context. And what I'm getting at, they'll say, "Don't be chucking no rocks unless you're chucking them at yourself." And they're right to do so. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen, and just watched one while ago, I saw a street preacher. And I see them all the time. They'll be preaching on some street corner at a Broadway downtown Nashville, which everybody knows, that's Party Central. Or they'll be in Vegas down on the Strip. They'll be down in New Orleans at Mardi Gras, or they'll be at a Pride Festival or Pride Parade, and they'll be preaching. And people come up mad as all get out. And don't be chucking rocks. You're not supposed to judge. People utilize these verses, and what they're doing is maybe they're doing it willingly, maybe they don't know. But what they are doing is they're trying to justify their sin, whether it's drunkenness, whether it's homosexuality, whatever it is, whatever sin it is that they're comfortable in, they justify it using scripture, saying we're not supposed to judge. That street preacher is not judging. And they take teaching, and which is what street preachers do. They teach. They preach a message. So they're teaching. They're teaching people. They take that as being judgmental. Preaching the gospel is not judging. It's not judging. Now, people do. But 9 times out of 10, somebody on that street corner who has been anointed by God to spread his word, he's not judging. She's not judging. They're not judging. They are teaching. They are doing what the Lord has set on their heart. The very last thing Jesus said in the book of Matthew was, go forth and make disciples of all nations. That's what they're doing. And people don't like it. People do not like it. But people like their sin. We all like our sin. Human beings, we love our sin. We do. And we dang sure don't want to be told we're in the wrong. The Bible calls us to admonish. Paul spoke about it in Romans 15:14. I myself am satisfied about you, my brothers, that you yourselves are full of goodness, filled with all knowledge, and able to instruct one another. Admonishing, instructing one another. We're called to spread the gospel. And sometimes that means you got to go into the belly of the beast. You got to go to a sin city. You got to go to a pride festival. You got to go to some place where it's just lawlessness. People don't like that. They think you're being judgmental. We're called to judge our brothers. We're not called to judge unbelievers, but we are called to judge our brothers, because if someone is in the wrong, especially as a believer, and you don't admonish that person, you don't call them on it, you're not doing your job. You're not doing your job. They use the phrase, what's that phrase they use? Affirming. Use the phrase affirming nowadays. Affirm me, affirm this, affirm that, blah, 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 blah. Affirmation of sin, that is lying to someone. Especially if you know what the book says, and you say, I live and let live. You live and let live is a surefire path to that, a surefire way to that wide path. We've all heard that the path to heaven is a very, very narrow gate, narrow path. And affirmation is just that. And, they say, oh, well, you're hateful. They tell these street preachers all the time, you're just spreading hate. You're spreading hate. He, she, whoever they are, they're spreading love. And these people that get all kinds of tore up about a street preacher being, on some street corner, they get all kinds of tore up. That street preacher does not hate you. Not at all. That street preacher loves you. He loves you enough to let you know that what you're doing is sinful, and it's not going to get you to heaven. So y'all think about that next time when you see one of these videos on Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or whatnot, and they're bashing these street preachers. Oh, you're just spreading hate speech. You're spreading no. Mm-mm. The most hateful thing you can do to someone is lie to them. An affirmation of sin it's a lie. It's hate. It is hate. I'd much rather somebody come up and tell me, hey, look, you're in the wrong, than to just let me go down a path when they know that they could help me. When they know they could help me. Y'all think about that. Also, try to find the comedy in the Bible, because I'm telling you, it's there. It's all over. It's all over. This book right here is filled with so much comedy. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but we serve a God who has a sense of humor. There ain't no doubt about that. And man, I sure do love this book. Every time I get into it, it's the living word. It doesn't matter how many times I read a verse or a chapter or a book or the Bible. I'm going to come away with something new nearly every time. Y'all get in the word. Y'all get in your prayers. We'll see y'all next time. Later.